They ate stale cornflakes and cold tin tomatoes on toast for breakfast the next day. They had just finished when the owner of the hotel came over to their table. "Excuse me, but is one of you Mr. H. Potter? Only I got about 100 of these on front desk this morning." She held up a letter so that they could clearly see the green ink address. Mr. H. Potter, room 17, Railview Hotel, Cokeworth. Harry made a grab for the letter, but Uncle Vernon knocked his hand out the way. The woman stared. "I'll take them," said Uncle Vernon, standing up quickly and following her out of the dining room. "Wouldn't it be better if we just went home, dear?" said Aunt Petunia, suggesting timidly, hours later, but Uncle Vernon didn't seem to hear her. Exactly what he was looking for, none of them knew. He drove them into the middle of a forest, got out of the car, looked around, shook his head, got back in the car, and then drove off. The same thing happened in the middle of a ploughed field, and also halfway across a suspension bridge, and then at the top of a multi-storey car park. "Daddy's gone mad, hasn't he?" said Dudley, asking Aunt Petunia dully late that afternoon. Uncle Vernon had parked at the coast, locked them all inside the car, and then disappeared. It started to rain. Great drops beat on the roof of the car. Dudley snivelled. "It's Monday," he told his mum. "The Great Humberto's on TV tonight. I want to stay somewhere that has a television." Monday? That reminded Harry of something. If it was Monday, and you could always count on Dudley to know what day of the week it was due to his television programmes, that meant that tomorrow, Tuesday, was Harry's 11th birthday. Of course, his birthdays were never exactly fun. Last year, the Dursleys had just given him a coat hanger and a pair of Uncle Vernon's old socks. But still, you weren't 11 every day. Uncle Vernon was back and he was smiling. He was also carrying a really long, thin package, and he didn't answer when Aunt Petunia asked what he'd bought. "Found the perfect place," he said. "Come on, everybody out." It was very cold outside the car. Uncle Vernon was pointing at what looked like a really large rock out to sea. Perched on top of the rock was the most miserable and tiny little shack that you could ever imagine. One thing was certain. There was no television in there. "Storm forecast for tonight," said Uncle Vernon, gleefully clapping his hands together. "And this gentleman's kindly offered to lend us his boat." A toothless old man came ambling up to them, pointing with a rather wicked grin at an old rowing boat bobbing in the iron grey water below them. "I've already got us some rations," said Uncle Vernon. "All aboard!" It was freezing on the boat. Icy sea spray went down their necks, and a chilly wind whipped their faces. After what seemed like hours, they reached the rock, where Uncle Vernon, slipping and sliding, led their way to the broken down house. The inside was horrible. It smelt really strongly of seaweed. The wind whistled through the gaps in the wooden walls, and the fireplace was damp and empty, and there were only 2 rooms. Uncle Vernon's ration turned out to be just a packet of crisps each and 4 bananas. He tried to start a fire, but the empty crisp packets just smoked and shriveled up. "Could do with some of them letters now, eh?" he said cheerfully. He was in a really, really good mood. Obviously, he thought nobody stood a chance of delivering them letters in a storm. Harry privately agreed, although the thought didn't really cheer him up very much. As night fell, the promised storm blew up around them. Spray from the high waves splattered the walls of the hut, and a fierce wind rattled the filthy windows. Aunt Petunia found a few mouldy blankets in the second room and made up a bed for Dudley in the moth-eaten sofa. She and Uncle Vernon went off to the lumpy bed next door, and Harry was left to find the softest bit of floor that he could and curl up underneath the most ragged, most thin blanket. The storm raged more and more ferociously as the night went on. Harry couldn't sleep. He shivered and turned over, trying to get comfortable. His stomach rumbled with hunger. Dudley's snores were drowned out by the low rolls of thunder that started about midnight. The lighted dial of Dudley's watch, which was dangling over the edge of the sofa on his fat old wrist, told Harry that he would be 11 in 10 minutes' time. He lay and watched his birthday tick nearer, wondering if the Dursleys would remember at all, wondering also where the letter writer was right now. 5 minutes to go. Harry heard something creaking outside. He hoped that the roof wasn't going to fall in, but he'd definitely be warmer if it did. 4 minutes to go. Maybe the house in Privet Drive would be so full of letters when they got home that he'd be able to find one and hide it. 3 minutes to go. Was that the sea slapping hard on the rock like that? And 2 minutes to go. What was that funny crunching noise? Was the rock crumbling into the sea? 1 minute to go and he'd be 11. 30 seconds. 20. 10. 9. Maybe he'd wake Dudley up just to annoy him. 3. 2. 1. Boom! The whole shack shivered and Harry sat bolt right up, staring at the door. Someone was outside, knocking to come in. Do you know who it is? That is the end of chapter 3. I really hope you enjoyed that. In the next chapter, we'll find out exactly who was knocking on the door.